Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. I'm Simply G, and today I'm going to be showing off all the anime that I got for this month of January 2021. New year, new month. There's a lot to get through. Quite a bit of this is from holiday sales from all over the world, US, UK, and Australia. I kind of splurged a little bit this year, and so there's some other stuff that arrived as well. So it's not just sale items, but it is mostly sale items, let's be real. So rather than spend too long on this intro, I'll get straight into it, and I hope you guys enjoy. First up is the stuff that I got from the remaining items from the Right Stuff Christmas sale that I received this month, all from the same series, all finishing up the series in this edition. So that is Ranma 1/2, parts 2, which is episodes 24 to 46, as you can see. Region A Blu-rays from Viz. Part 3, which is up to episode 69. Part 5, because I already had part 4, so this is episodes 116 to 138. 3 discs in all of these, and the final release is part 7. The movies and OVAs haven't gotten a standard edition like this show has, so this is 139 to 161. And I do plan to get the films and OVA once they do decide to put them out on a standard Blu-ray release. So I prior owned the limited editions for this series, and I do enjoy it. It's very fun, very funny, but it's not like a series that is my absolute favorite. It's not one that I need a super amazing limited edition release for. The discs are the same across all the releases, so I kind of downgraded a lot for shelf space, but also just because those limited editions are quite hard to find now. I thought that someone else, another collector, probably would appreciate them more than I personally did. I didn't want to just have them around because they were hard to find or hard to get, and like with a lot of older shows, I'm not particularly nostalgic for them because they predate my entry into anime fandom by a whole lot. And I have not yet finished Ranma as of recording this, and I won't be by the time it's posted either. But this is a funny comedy action about a boy who is a very accomplished martial artist who, when training in China with his father, fell into a cursed lake. And so every time that he falls into cold water, he turns into a girl. Every time he is doused in hot water, he turns into a boy. And his father, similar thing happened, although he fell into a cursed lake, which makes him turn into a panda, and a whole bunch of shenanigans happens. They have moved back to Japan, and they are currently living with Ranma's betrothed and her family, Akane, and her sisters and father. And so it's just the shenanigans that these crazy characters and their friends get up to. It's not like world changing or anything, but it is funny. I know it hasn't really aged that well in certain respects. The dub can be very problematic when it comes to racist accents and things like that. But generally, it's a fun show to just pop a disc in, watch a couple episodes. There's no overarching storyline. You're not, you can kind of turn your brain off to it. You can do other things whilst it's going on and still laugh along with some of the shenanigans and the craziness that these characters find themselves in. There's a large cast of characters, many of whom also have curses placed upon them that turn them into different animals or different things. And yeah, it's a great time. This is definitely one of this creator's more well-known series. It's certainly so this is from the manga is from the same creator as Urusei Yatsura and Inuyasha and Rini and whatever her current Mao series is, and Maison Ikkoku, which is a mermaid saga. So it's obviously very prolific. Recently joined the Eisner Hall of Fame. Rumika Takahashi is kind of the queen of especially like shonen action comedies. I will say that like I haven't read a huge amount of her manga. I've read a little bit of Urusei Yatsura. I've read I'm hoping to read Maison Ikkoku. I just haven't read a huge amount of her stuff, and I do think that it's not an unfair criticism that a lot of her, especially gag manga like this, are very long. They're quite repetitive because they can be 30-something volumes long, and there's not a huge amount of forward momentum with story, and so that's not to everyone's taste. And so I'm also kind of someone who doesn't I don't think it's necessary to own a lot of her works for me, just because I'm not always a fan of things that don't have a huge amount of plot going on or don't have the characters growing in some way over the course of the series. And that's not to say that there's no growth or that there's no story. Of course not. But 30-something volumes of the same joke can be a little bit tiring. And so that's why when watching this, I do kind of just keep it at a couple episodes every time that I'm watching it. And I do watch it sort of sporadically, which is why I'm only currently partway through the 5th volume of this Blu-ray release. But it is really wonderful. It's definitely a classic series. It's one that a lot of people love, and I'm finally I've owned it previously, but I'm happy to finally finish my collection of the standard Blu-rays, having replaced my limited edition ones and continuing the story from where I left off. Next is another US release, one that I was very excited to get, and one that I actually helped fund, and that may give it away. But this is Emma, a Victorian Romance, the limited edition for parts 1 and 2. This came with a whole bunch of extras, some of which I will talk about in my manga pickups video. But it came with a big art book and a copy or a duplicate or replicate of a particular manga page. It came with a big poster, and so I only got the particular tier that included the box and the first season, and after the fact I put money towards the second season just because it was a little bit easier for me money-wise. So, and this comes with postcards as well. So 2 discs for each season. And, oh, yeah, more postcards and stuff as well. So this, if you're not familiar, this is the anime adaptation of Kaoru Mori's Emma, a series that I love and adore. Obviously, I'm a huge Kaoru Mori fan. And this is the story of a maid in Victorian England called Emma, who falls in love with a young man who was formerly her mistress's client's not the right word, but her mistress used to be a governess. So as part of her work, she used to be the governess for this young guy in his childhood and his siblings. So he goes to visit her. Once he's reached adulthood, he kind of is paying his respects to her. And when visiting, he meets Emma, literally kind of runs into her, and he's fairly smitten immediately. And so it's about their romance and the trials and tribulations that come from that because of the class separation, because of the expected social pressures on both of them, because of the disapproval from so many people in their lives. And it's really sweet and lovely. I love this series a whole bunch. So this was actually this is a Nozomi release, aka Right Stuff's licensing branch, anime publisher branch. And they previously released this on DVD, which they also kind of crowdfunded before Kickstarter was even a thing. And it did very well. I used to own the DVD limited edition releases of that. I didn't help crowdfund it, but because that was a little bit before my time. But I did buy it and love it. It was probably the first Kawamori thing I ever kind of came across, and instantly fell in love with her series. I will say that the ending to this and the ending to the manga is a little bit different. There's a little bit of variation in how it concludes, but ultimately it's still in the same idea. So it's not a one-to-one adaptation, and I don't mind that. I don't think that's a bad thing. But so the reason that Nozomi decided to kickstart this is to fund the English dub. The original was subtitle only, and as a series that is set in Victorian England, I do think that it's appropriate to have a dub for this. Longtime viewers know that I am not really fussy about whether series get dubs or not. I very often watch things subtitled only, but if a dub is available, I do always think that it's better to have things dubbed than not, just because it does open up accessibility. It does allow for a lot of people to watch and enjoy these shows that may not be comfortable with reading subtitles, or have a lot of experience with subtitles, or just for numerous reasons may not be able to read subtitles. And I think definitely considering, again, because this is set in England, and Nozomi kind of went out of their way to try and give a period accurate and authentic feeling to the dub. They hired Brits, they hired those people with an authentic accent, or at least close enough to. It's not full of just the same American voice actors and actresses that you're used to, which again, this is no bad blood against voice actors. I have nothing against them, and I think they are very good at what they do. They get a lot of crap for things that are completely out of their control, and they have, English voice acting has such a biased reputation, such a skewed reputation in certain communities, so I will always defend the English voice cast of things, but I do appreciate that Nozomi put in the effort to make this more close to what, a British setting is, maybe, because we've definitely seen Americans attempt English accents in the past, and some are fine, others are not, and it's very obvious when someone's putting on a goofy accent versus that's just how they talk, right? So yeah, I do think I think the dub has been good. I've been rewatching the series with my mother because she is a huge fan of period pieces and period romance in particular, so I knew she would love the series. I've been rewatching it with her, and my sister has been joining us for that, so I think she's watching it for the first time. I can't remember if she's seen it before. Regardless, regardless, it's been good. It's been good to revisit the series, and the dub has been very, very strong. I have very few, if any, complaints. So, beautiful release, although I don't know if I'm completely sold on the limited edition box. I mean, the spine's nice, but I don't know. I feel like there was a lot of nicer ways you could have done this release. But maybe that's just me. And I'm happy to finally own the series on Blu-ray. It did take a little while from Kickstarter funding to receiving this, but that's, that kind of comes with crowdfunding. I don't hold it against Nozomi. And really happy to finally have it. And I hope that people who maybe did miss the Kickstarter will consider purchasing the standard Blu-rays once they are available after the fact. We have some Sentai sale stuff, some of the stragglers from the holiday sales, and kind of the follow-up holiday sales as well. This wasn't, I don't think this was Black Friday. I think this was Christmas sales, maybe New Year's. I don't even remember. So many sales at the end of the year from Sentai, especially. Just a couple things that I have enjoyed and I've seen and were cheap enough for me to, jump on. First being Love Stage. This is the original with the series with the OVA, subtitle only. This has been re-released with a dub since, which I think later was all included in the very cheaply priced sale items in a subsequent sale, which is kind of a shame. I may have picked up that one instead of this, but again, I'm not super fussed. I don't know if I'd ever watch the dub for this. And for those who don't know, this is a BL series between a young guy the blonde here, who he's the son of actor and actress. His older brother is a famous rock musician, and there's an expectation that he will join the entertainment industry like all of his family, but he really wants to become a mangaka. He loves manga and drawing. He's a super otaku. One day he gets a call, or his mother, he hears the news that when he was a child, he was featured in an advert, right? And it was like a really famous advert, but he was not really meant to be there originally, and it was the actress, the little girl who was meant to be in the advert. I don't know what happened to her. So she couldn't make it or something. She was sick or something. So in desperation, the director and the crew decided to dress our main character up as in the dress and do hair and makeup and whatever, and have him play the girl in this advert. And the whole advert is these two kids who I think meet at a wedding or something, and it's love at first sight or something. It's something like that. I can't remember. It's been a little while since I've read the manga and a little while since I've watched the show. Anyway, so he does that, quickly forgets about it, grows up. Now it's been 20 years-ish since that advert. And it was so popular. People loved it's kind of iconic for the whatever it was advertising. And it's the 20th anniversary or 25th anniversary. I think 20th, that makes more sense. And the company wants to, for the anniversary, recreate their most popular advert. So they're wanting to hire the kids, the child actors that they had originally, and the boy who had been in the advert, the actor who was playing the boy in the advert, he's since become a really famous, well-known actor, voted handsomest man, whatever, and obviously they're wanting to bring in this quote-unquote little girl, so he kind of begrudgingly agrees, and so he goes there and is all dressed up and whatever. They shoot the advert, and when he comes face to face with this incredibly popular, handsome, beloved actor. That actor confesses his love to him, and how he talks about how he fell in love at first sight when they first were working together, and how amazing it is for him to see her again, and he's been waiting for her all like these 20 years or whatever. And our protagonist is like, sorry man, I'm a guy, and hate to burst your bubble. And although initially like shocked, this actor's like, well, that's fine. I don't really care what gender you are. I don't really, like, I'm in love with you, even though they don't know each other, so he's not actually in love with him, but you know what I mean. And so he is wanting to start a romantic relationship with this dorky otaku, and thus their love story begins. It's pretty tropey, it's pretty silly, it's not like an amazing series, but it's fun. It's not overly problematic. I mean, there's some issues, as with all BL, but it's not hurtful or harmful or anything. It's good. It's a solid little series. I enjoyed the manga. The anime was a solid adaptation of the first part of it. And yeah, if you like BL, if you like BL manga, and if you like Love Stage and the manga, and you haven't seen this, you probably will enjoy it. There's implied explicit scenes that you don't see anything, or you don't see much, at least. So be fair warning there. But it's just meant to be a fun, lighthearted love story between these two opposites, and how they get closer to each other, and live happily ever after, as it were. I've always find it funny because the creator of this manga, Eki, she so her brother in real life, who the brother in this series is fashioned after, is a really famous musician, like frontman for a band, like really well known. Daigo? What's his name? I cannot remember. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Her brother is like actually famous. She's famous in her own right, but he's a famous musician, very well known. And she straight up said that she's fashioned the brother character in this after her brother. And bless his heart, supportive siblings, I can't believe. Because also there's a spin-off series to this, novels, where the brother and his manager have a sexual romance relationship. So she inserted her real life brother into her gay comics and gave him a boyfriend also. But then also her brother, I don't know he's either very comfortable in his sexuality, or he just doesn't give a shit. But he is gay, but we don't know. I'm not here to speculate, but he, in every iteration and every adaptation of this series, Love Stage, and its spin-offs, he has played himself. So he voices the brother in this. He plays the brother in the live-action version. I'm just like, man, that's some supportive sibling right there. It's great. I love that fact. But yeah, Love Stages is pretty fun. It's not, it's not going to change your life like with any of these things that I talk about, but it's solid. And for the absolutely incredibly cheap price that it was during the sales, I absolutely had to jump on it, because it's almost, I don't know, like, I think this was $6, then that's absurd. It's absurd. And I did enjoy this enough that I will probably rewatch it in the future at some point. So might as well, right? So yeah, Love Stage. Enjoyed it. Pretty solid. We have the other thing that I got from the Sentai sale, and that is Gengitsune, Messenger Fox of the Gods. This is a subtitled only 12 episode series, 12 or 13 episode series, about a young girl who lives at a shrine. Her father is a monk or priest or something, I can't remember. But she has the ability to see the shrine god of her family's estate, which is this fox. And I think she can see other deity. I can't quite remember. She can certainly see other fox deity. And it's kind of just their lives together. It's a low-key slice of life series with yokai and, just, it's my kind of thing. This isn't my favorite of this genre, but I do enjoy it. It's one of those things that is just a calming afternoon watch. It's something that's not going to get you super your blood pumping or anything. It's not exciting or tense or overly emotional. It does have some really solid character stuff in there. The relationship between our main character and this fox deity is pretty great. I mean, it's similar in Natsume that there's sort of a mentor and mentee relationship there, but also the kind of disagreements and clash of personalities that comes with that. So again, for as cheap as it was, I was happy to pick it up, and I'm glad to finally have it in the collection. It's a solid little watch if that sounds like something you're interested in. I don't know if you can stream this anywhere. I feel like you probably could on High Dive. If not, and you are wanting to try it, maybe do wait for a Sentai sale to pick it up. But yeah, Messenger Fox of the Gods is pretty good, Not my favorite, but it's I'm a sucker for these premises anyway. We know this. I make no secret of it, and I'm happy to have the disc finally. Next, we have some Australian stuff I got in Australian sales. Although this is a US release that was just released in Australia because Funimation is because they're a distributor now. They just basically give everything, all of their series region A and B coding, and so thus they don't have to create new discs for European or Australian markets. Anyway, this is Akka 13, the Essentials release. Basically, I mean, it's the whole series on 2 discs. I got this mainly because I mean, for people who've watched my channel for a long time, I have the Japanese release of this series, subtitled, very fancy, nice limited edition. This obviously is one of the US releases, has a dub. A little less bulky, obviously. I'm not going to be getting rid of my Japanese edition, but I feel like this might be the easier discs to pop in if I'm wanting to rewatch it. Yeah. Akka, or Akka 13 is a series adapting Natsume Ono's manga of the same name, wherein our main character, Jean, is an inspector for this Akka organization. They're basically the government of this larger country with 13 different factions, and he is in the central branch. He's sent to go audit all the other regions, all the other states, see how their Akka departments are going. Meanwhile, there is trouble and coup and revolution afoot, and Jean may just be at the middle of it. I really enjoy this series. It does have problems, but I do enjoy it quite a bit. I like Natsume Ono's work generally. I do prefer one of her other mangas over this one, but I do think that this one, it's a slow burn, a super slow burn, so much that it's basically sedentary at many plot points. I wouldn't necessarily dive into this if you want a super suspenseful thriller or political thriller or whodunit, but it's part travelogue, part political thriller, part food diary kind of. So very much in line with Natsume Ono's proclivities. And anyone who's read or watched any of her other stuff know exactly what I mean. I do like this. I think Madhouse made this series look gorgeous as well. It's beautiful. So yeah, I've talked at length about this series in the Natsume Ono podcast I did with my good friend and co-host Ray from Whimsical Pictures in our podcast Read Right to Left. That was September or October last year. So if you are wanting to hear both of our thoughts on the series, we are talking specifically about the manga, but this is an complete adaptation of the main series. So maybe check that out if it sounds interesting to you, and definitely try out her other works, most notably House of Five Leaves. That is my favorite. But yeah, Akka 13. This was on sale here in Australia in our stores, so I picked it up because I had some other stuff to get, and it was there. I had a little bit of extra money. It was 40 or 50% off, so I kind of shrugged and was like, well, I was planning on getting this sort of at some point, and although it's not a huge priority for me to get it, the sale's on right now and it's right here, so I may as well. But yeah, Akka 13. More sale items. Again, more Funimation releases. So these are just, again, the US release, but sold here in Australia. I've taken the ratings logo sticker off of the slipcases because I don't like them. And they're just stickers, so that's fine. But this is seasons 1 and season 2 of Kono Oto Tomare Sounds of Life. So this, if you haven't seen, I watched both seasons of this when quarantine started, so March, April of last year, and I knew I would like it, but I absolutely fell in love. This is the story of a Koto club, high school club, consisting of 5 and then later 6 characters. Our main character is Chika, this guy who his grandfather he builds Koto, he has since died, but he built Koto, he loved Koto, and throughout his rebellious phase, he always encouraged Chika to try the instrument and to, be proud of himself. And even though he was kind of being this rebellious delinquent, that he still cared about him. After some stuff, his grandfather ended up passing away. In order to kind of reconnect with the only family that he had, he has since tried to take up the Koto, and to everyone's surprise, he's kind of a natural. I mean, he doesn't have any he's never been taught how to play, but he does have this innate talent that is willing to be nurtured. He decides to join the Koto Club, which is at that point only one member, this character in the glasses, who is the single remaining character after all of his senpai graduated the year before. So he is the president, and kind of initially he's the club room has been overtaken by delinquents, and so he's a little bit wary about Chika trying to join, but very quickly does see that he's very serious about it. Next is this character here, this girl who joins, and she is a Koto Prodigy. She is very well known in the professional circuit for this instrument. Her family is a very well known family in regards to creating musicians for the Koto, and she has innate talent that has already been nurtured. So she's kind of the expert for the group. But because of family struggles, she has since left her home and is now trying to make it on her own. But ultimately, she's still playing the Koto and loves the Koto. And then finally, we have some of Chika's friends who kind of join the club just to fill out numbers, but very quickly start to really enjoy the music and what they can accomplish themselves. And absolutely lastly is this character, and she doesn't really show up until the second season. And man, I love it. It's a high school drama, obviously. There's a lot of teenage stress going on, framed by musical performance. It's a less tragic version of something like Your Lie in April, but it has this found family feel. I believe the manga is a shonen series and is still ongoing. It was just beautiful. I love the Koto. I think it is a beautiful instrument. I love the music that is produced from and created with Koto players, and it's just so nice to kind of experience the series just all about that, just all about the Koto and the people who play the Koto. And so, yeah, Kono Oto Tomare, Sounds of Life, I highly recommend. You can stream it. I feel like, well, I watched it on Anime Lab. I feel like that means it's on Funimation, probably streaming. And I was perfectly willing to buy these outright, but I am happy that I waited for a sale because I did get them for a much reduced price. And considering it's only been almost about a year since I first watched them, I probably won't be rewatching quite yet. But I do look forward to revisiting this series in the future. Next is another Funimation release that was just released in Australia. One that I was really excited to get and really happy to finally get, and that is Sarazanmai, the most recent of, and it says it right there on the cover, the most recent of director Kunihiko Ikuhara's series. This is the story of three middle school. So if you're not familiar or you don't immediately recognize the name, Ikuhara is the director behind Revolutionary Girl Utena, Mawaru Penguin Drum, and Yori Kuma Arashi. This is his most recent work. I love all of his stuff. I make no secret of it. I love the original anime. I love all of the various adaptations, the manga, light novels, all of that. And this is the story of three middle school boys who one day come in contact with two who are friends, the third who is just kind of recently been introduced to them. He doesn't go to school. They kind of run into him. But they all run into this weird white blob froggy thing who claims to be this Kappa prince. And Kappa is a type of yokai. You see them here. They've got a turtle shell and they've got this dish on their head that they have to keep wet. They're an aquatic monster that in folklore would grab people and take their Shikira Dama, which the Japanese believed is this life energy organ within you. They suck it out of you via your butt and just and eat that, and thus the victim would drown. It's based off of the idea that drowning victims very often after they've drowned, their body kind of disembowels itself. So because of that, that's where the folklore came from. Anyway, regardless, so these three boys run into this Kappa prince, and he turns them into Kappa themselves, and they have to work together to fight these weird zombies that are terrifying the city, trying to feed on human connection. And then there's also two police officers who are following this as well. And man, there's not like a huge amount of moving parts in the series, but Ikuhara series are hard to sum up in like a single sentence or a single paragraph. This is definitely a wild ride. If you're not used to Ikuhara, you will be going, what the hell is going on? It is just crazy. It's not nearly as full of symbolism, it's full of symbolism, but it's not hard to decipher symbolism in the same way that some of, like, Ikuhara and Yorikumo Arashi, etc. is. I don't think the series necessarily gets the same level of, like, critical breakdown of every frame and every image shown in it, because it's quite straightforward in its themes. It's quite straightforward in its symbology, I love it. But like, again, with all Ikuhara series, it is incredibly gay. And so be forewarned if that's something you need warning for, maybe. Yeah, it's great. I love it. It's crazy. It's just absurd. It's the first time that a non-BL series has had a man say I love you to another man and not have it hidden by innuendo or, quickly diverted from, which is really cool. Yeah, it's just all around really good. It's a solid little series, only 11 episodes, and I look forward to rewatching it at some point. I don't know when, but it's definitely a series that maybe isn't for everyone, but if you are an Ikuhara fan, you owe it to yourself to experience it and to enjoy it. This is a series that I got during the UK sale, so this is a UK release of a series that I think I also watched in quarantine. I wasn't quite sure. Either in quarantine or just before quarantine, like during this December-January break last year. And it's one that I'd heard pretty good things about, but initially I kind of dismissed because it didn't sound like my thing. But I did want to get to it at some point, and it honestly really positively surprised me. And later I watched the film and really enjoyed that as well. And that is Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. This is the TV show, obviously. And this is the story of a high school boy called Sakuta, who, it's based off a light novel, if that wasn't very obvious. But one day he is at the public library and he notices that there's this beautiful, incredibly attractive girl wandering around in a bunny suit. And no one seems to notice her. She's kind of like standing right in front of people and waving her hands and jumping around, and no one else is paying one iota of attention to her. And he kind of realizes that he's the only one who can see her, and then starts to question, like, oh my god, am I going crazy? Am I hallucinating things? Am I really that, desperately, virginally lonely? But he finds out that, he quickly discovers that this girl that he saw is one of his upperclassmen, one of the senpai, and also a very well-known young actress. So before She was an up-and-coming actress, but kind of has since taken some time off, and in order to focus on herself and on her school and all of that. And he quickly runs into her, and she acknowledges or recognizes that he had seen her, when she was out and about in her bunny suit. And I'm not talking like a mascot outfit. I'm talking the sexy kind, right? And so she confesses to him that when she's not at school, nobody recognizes her. Nobody acknowledges her. It's like she doesn't exist. Nobody can see her. And so Sakuta kind of considers this, and he believes it because obviously he saw it firsthand, but also he acknowledges it as her being possibly a victim of puberty syndrome. So the majority of this series, or the premise of this series, is that in puberty, you can develop certain symptoms that can affect your life, change you, and change people around you. And so, with each of the story arcs in this series, and which obviously match up with the novels that they are following, Sakuta is coming across people, mainly young girls, as it tends to be with, I say young girls, teenage girls, who have similar problems. So for this girl that he initially meets, she is no longer being seen or acknowledged by anyone, and that's born from her fear of becoming forgotten now that she's out of the limelight, and she doesn't know how to fix that. And the reason that Sakuta takes her seriously, the reason that he knows that people's emotions can become physical things in their lives, is because his younger sister is actually suffering from the same thing. And she was being majorly, I don't know if she was bullied or something was happening, and all of a sudden she was getting all of these physical injuries, slash wounds on her person, but nobody, had a knife. Nobody was attacking her. And it was part of that, I think, own self-hatred and self-doubt that she was playing this role. It's actually really good, despite kind of the dodgy premise, and again, despite this being, a guy who's helping girls with all of their problems, a la a Monogatari, or even a Haruhi Suzumiya type of novel. I really like Sakuta. I think that he and, I think her name is Mai. Is this the girl? Yeah, Mai Sakurajima, who's this girl. They, after the first arc, they become a couple, and I do like their relationship. And I think that it's really done well, for a premise that I wasn't super in love with, for a series that I wasn't expecting great things from. It actually really did a lot of things very, very well. I like a lot of the side characters. I like a lot of the conflicts, and again, that whole framing of puberty as like the emotions of that becoming or turning real in the real world, having physical ramifications in your life and to yourself. There's one instance, or one of the story arcs is about a good friend, platonic friend that Sakuta has, and she's very nerdy. She's kind of seen as this like mad scientist whiz girl, but then every so often she'll be more of a normal, like, kind of outgoing, popular girl who wants to hang out and, act certain ways that typically this friend doesn't act. And she literally has created a doppelganger of herself, because her online self is so different. She portrays herself online, on Twitter and such, as so different from her day-to-day life. And I thought that was a really cool way that they did that, and having her friends kind of reconcile those two different people as the same girl. It's just like, there's a lot of really cool things that this series does. Obviously, it's a teen drama type of series with a sort of supernatural twist, not really. But it's just, if the title kind of scared you off of because it does sound a little bit dodgy, don't judge a book by its cover. I went in with that kind of same judgment. I wasn't gonna say that I knew that I would dislike it, but I knew it was maybe like, or I thought it would probably be something that was okay, but like one of those popular series that other people find really, really good, and for whatever reason isn't something that I'm super into, and that's totally fine. But it ended up being a series that I ultimately really, really enjoyed, and when this was on sale, I decided to pick it up. So yeah, Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, and then the movie is Rascal Does Not Dream of Dreaming Girl, which is another different character story arc. And is also really good, and I think also a really good ending point for the anime adaptation if they don't want to make any more. But if they do, there's also a possibility there. I don't know how long the novels are, if they're still ongoing or whatever, but yeah, it's a solid show, and I do hope to pick up the novels at some point. Next, we have some actual Shonen releases, although technically these are still kind of Funimation releases. It's a series that's put out by Funimation, but I think they're Blu-ray DVD releases in the US, not just Blu-ray releases, which is typically why I would go for a Shonen release over a US one. But I got part 1 and 2, so the entirety of season 1 of Fruits Basket, the 2019 remake. Obviously this is a adaptation of the manga of the same name. This is expected to be the closest and more accurate and complete adaptation of this incredibly popular, incredibly beloved shoujo classic. If you're not somehow familiar with Fruits Basket, this is the story of a teenage girl called Toru Honda, who, after the untimely death of her mother and some personal family issues, she ends up sleeping in a tent on a mountain. And one day she runs into one of the more popular boys in her class, who is this boy right here, Yuki Soma. He's seen as the prince at school, very popular. A lot of girls in love with him, etc., etc. And she discovers that instead of actually being on just kind of like a wild property like she thought, she is actually camping on his family's land, the Soma family property, and he lives with one of his cousins, and so they kind of start talking for the first time ever. She initially never really spoke to him. They don't have a huge amount of stuff in common, and he's quite standoffish. And so he and his cousin, they offer for her to start living with them, because rather than staying in a tent, there's this whole thing with like a mudslide and stuff, but she ends up starting to live with them, but on the first day the first night that she's really spending time at their place, another cousin, Kyo, who's the other main male lead in the series, comes crashing through the roof, trying to fight Yuki. Again, they're cousins, they're very much at odds. The Soma family is huge, there's hundreds of members, and in the midst of this fight, Kyo accidentally trips into, or something happens. Toru trips and falls and embraces, quote unquote, both Yuki and Kyo, which turns them into a rat and a cat, respectively. Unsure what's going on, hearing all the commotion, the other cousin, Shigeru, he comes to see what's up, and she again trips on that. She's freaking out because obviously two people just turned into two animals, and again tripping over this third Soma, he turns into a dog, and thus Toru learns the family secret, the Soma family secret, where 12 members of the family, 13 members, have the ability to change into the 12 animals of the zodiac, plus the cat, which was the animal that was left out of the celebrations. So this is, I love Fruits Basket. I adore the manga. I think it's phenomenal. I'm so happy that we're getting a more accurate adaptation of the manga through this new anime. I haven't caught up with the most recent season, I'm sorry to say, but this will be finished in another season. I think the third season will be wrapping it up. I don't know whether, because I'm not up to date with the show currently, I don't know whether the last season is going to be only 12 episodes or if it's going to be another 24 episodes like the first two seasons have been. But yeah, so it's a story about Toru and her interactions with the various zodiac members of the Soma family and the generational trauma that is persistent within the Soma family, and obviously the emotional heartache of the zodiac members and how they feel about themselves, how they feel about each other, and how Toru, as an outsider and an unjudgmental outsider, is able to help these people who she very clearly grows to care about over the course of the series. Obviously there's a romantic element as well, sort of a love triangle between Toru and Kyo and Yuki. And yeah, I've already said I love the series, love the manga. I've seen the original anime. It's fun, it's funny, it's very tonally different from this because I think that the way that the series was initially adapted in anime focused on sort of the more slice of life comedy, hijinksy, romance side of the early part of the story, rather than the absolute heartbreaking, emotional, depressive, traumatic elements of the characters' internal musings that is really under the surface and becomes more and more prominent over the course of the series. So much so that with the original series that the mangaka, Takuya Sensei, hated it. She hated the first anime so much, and she forbade it ever being adapted again unless she could have full creative control, and, have it to what her expectations were. And obviously, now it's been at least 10 years since the original. It's been a very long time. And finally, there seems to be a production company who agreed to her terms, and thus this series has been made. I love this new version. The animation is gorgeous. The updated character designs are amazing. They're more in line with Takuya's current art style compared to early Fruits Basket stuff, which I think helps it a lot, especially when we're considering this is for a new generation of fans, a different audience, and there's certain art styles that I don't think typical anime fans are that drawn to anymore, so I do think that it probably needed an upgrade. Plus, I think the voice cast, the Japanese voice cast, is amazing. I really love everyone who has been involved, and I have not watched it, or I haven't watched a lot of it in the dub, but they did get a majority of the original English voice cast to return and reprise their roles, which is super cool. So, yeah. Fruits Basket, I'm hoping to get... I don't really know whether I want to get the part 1 of season 2 limited edition for the next, because that actually comes with a storage box for the whole series, or if I want to wait and see if Australia does their own storage box, perhaps in a different design. But I don't know, I'm still kind of undecided, and I'm not sure whether or not the Australian releases will even necessarily fit in the US release because of case thickness oddities, or maybe ultimately I will have to make my own box for the series. Who knows? I'm still on the fence about it, but that doesn't really have anything to do with the show itself. Fruits Basket is a classic. If you've never read the manga or watched the original series, I would highly recommend this version over that older anime. The older anime isn't bad, but it's not Fruits Basket. I can understand why the creator didn't like the direction that it was taken in. And I do also highly recommend the manga. The Yen Press collector's editions are beautiful and so lovely, especially compared to... And this is even a series that Tokyo Pop put a lot of effort into, but the translation quality, the size, the paper quality, all of it is a big step upgrade. So yeah, Fruits Basket, really happy to have this, and yeah, can't wait to actually start the second season. I need to get on that. Next is another series that I kind of sold my original copies to and bought I sold the US release that I owned and got the Australian release, and that is for one of my favorite shonen series. One of my absolute favorite shonen series, Hunter x Hunter 2011. So with this release, it's actually going to be completed in 5 volumes. So this first case has discs 1 to 3. And then I don't have part 2 because part 2 actually had some disc errors, and I don't think that they've fully... or in store you can't really find part 2 because I don't think that the fixed releases have been put to market yet, so I'm going to just wait until I get those. But part 2 is a 4-disc release, part 3 is another 3-disc release, and part 4 is 3-disc release, and I would suspect part 5 is also 3 discs. Yeah, this in the US release is actually 7 parts plus the 2 films. So if you add the 2 films to the Australian release, it is 7 all up, which helps with shelf space for 1, and for 2, this is one of my favorite series, so I don't really mind double dipping or repurchasing it. Again, the ease of use of having it on Region B Blu-ray versus Region A, it's just not really a big deal to me. Plus, again, I got these during sale time. So if you're not somehow familiar with Hunter x Hunter, welcome to the channel. But this is Yoshihiro Togashi's currently ongoing Shonen Jump action, adventure, horror maybe series about a young boy called Gon, who is at a young age is abandoned to his aunt Mito by his father, who has gone off to continue traveling the world and discovering new things, and he is what's known as a professional hunter. Ging is his name. So when Gon becomes old enough to apply for or take the hunter test himself, the hunter exam, he decides to follow in his father's footsteps and become a hunter. See what is so amazing about this job that would make, or not make his father, but his father would choose over having a family and his own son. So Gon goes to the hunter exam, and on the way and at the exam he meets a bunch of wonderful friends and associates who I will show on the first, I think they're on the first cover, I would suspect they are. These are the four main characters. So we've got Gon in green, his best friend, and same age assassin, young or middle child of an elite assassin family, and probably the favorite to take over the family business, Killua. The blonde is Kurapika, who is trying to avenge the massacre, the murder of his entire peoples, his clan, who have these gorgeous bright red eyes whenever they are emotional, called the Scarlet Eyes. And so he's trying to avenge the Kurta clan from their, being brutally murdered by this group called the Spiders. And finally we have Leorio, who is just kind of a normal guy. He wants to become a hunter because he finds the huge amount of money that brings is very attractive, because he wants to become a doctor and save people, help people without having them pay medical bills, which is like really sweet. But he's the only like normal person without some sort of crazy backstory and crazy power and like unhinged quality to them out of our main four characters. And so a majority of the series, especially in the anime, we do follow Gon and Killua. Kurapika has his own dedicated arc. Leorio does not, but he does show up from throughout the course of the series, and he has some very memorable moments. He is definitely good value. And this, as I said, this is an ongoing series. It is one of my favorite Jump titles of all time. I love it. It is constantly on hiatus, so much so that it does like imbue this joke that rather than Hunter x Hunter, the title is hiatus. But of course, I begrudge no mangaka their free time and their health, and Yoshihiro Togashi is well known for having terrible chronic back pain, which obviously impacts his ability to create. So yeah, if you're wanting to make a Togashi's lazy joke on a channel, just be forewarned that I will delete it. I don't have any time to entertain that. Anyway, so I love Hunter x Hunter. It's 148 episodes long. And I feel like considering that it's a series on hold, possibly never to be completed, depending on Togashi's health and his want to finish the series. It ended in the perfect place. This is a adaptation by Madhouse, so it looks gorgeous. The vocal performances on the Japanese side, again, I don't know the English side, is phenomenal. Megumi-han as Gon is just, I love her. She's so good. And Maria Issei as Killua is just, oh, I love them so much. But really, Miyuki Sawashiro is Kurapika, and the sadly passed Fujisaki is what is his first name? I can't remember. Kenji Fujisaki is Leorio. I don't know if we ever do see more of this in the future, which is not likely, but maybe, fingers crossed. Other stranger things have happened. I don't know who they would replace him with, but it would be a hard performance to top. But yeah, this is a series that obviously it's an action adventure. I wouldn't say tournament fighter. It does have sort of tournament bits and pieces in it, but it's not to the same level as some like more typical Jump series, where that's sort of the entire structure of it. And a lot of it is Gon and Killua traveling around, having adventures, running into bad people, and having emotional breakdowns, and fighting and saving the day in ways that are not that typical of Jump stuff, I must say. This is a series that isn't afraid to bring out dark themes, to be very violent, to be very disconcerting and upsetting, and in ways that don't necessarily rely on a lot of like huge amount of violence, although it is quite a violent series. Don't let the first, like the Hunter exam arc, lull you into a sense of false security. But even so, like, I find that as soon as Hisoka's introduced, which is only like episode 3 or 4, you already can tell that there's a unnerving undercurrent to Hunter x Hunter, and that just continues to grow over the course of the series. I also I just love everything about Hunter x Hunter, honestly. Each and every arc has their own strengths and weaknesses, and it's just something that feels really organic. All of the characters and all of the settings feel like they exist pretty naturally within the setting. And it's a series that, like, I feel like Togashi has a lot of fun with, because he jumps around. At one point it will be like an exam, arc. One point it will be this dark, violent revenge plot. And another, it'll be like a fun game collection focused arc. And then it will be an arc focused on the, like, what is humanity, and this just existential crisis of being human and our place in the world. And it's just all so good. It's all so good. And despite, how the tone kind of shifts and changes, and the arcs are kind of put together and feel like they're focused on whatever Tagashi's interested in at the time, it all works so well. And that's the strength of a truly good writer, in my opinion. But yeah, Hunter x Hunter, I love it. I will definitely be getting part 2 once those replacements are available, and part 5 is just around the corner, so I will definitely be getting that sooner rather than later. And I am sure that we will see the films in due course here in Australia. And otherwise, I'm probably due to rewatch Hunter x Hunter, to be honest. This is a series that I started watching the day that the first episode streamed on Crunchyroll, all the way back in September or October of 2011. And I followed it for the 3 years that it was running, 3.5 years, whatever it was. And man, I've never been the same since, to be honest. Now onto the films. All of these are Region B. I'll start with the Australian ones. This is one that I had the limited edition for, and which came with a soundtrack and this really thick booklet. Maybe it was a script, I don't remember, but it's not I'm happy with just the standard release. I'm happy to replace it, and that is Promare. Really fun film from Trigger. This is the story of Gallo, who is a firefighter, and Leo, who is the head of a terrorist organization called the Mad Burnish, who are comprised of all of these people who have this like natural fire ability. And so Gallo is very often sent to put out fires set by the Mad Burnish, or the Burnish, which is just what this like race of humanity is called. And so these two are initially at odds, but the more involved Gallo gets, and the more he becomes aware of Leo and who the Burnish really are, he starts to realize that maybe there's something larger going on. Maybe there is forces at play that want the Burnish to disappear, and perhaps they aren't these terrible terrorists that he's always been told. It's a Trigger show, so just bombastic, like colors, music, action, The animation is amazing. I will say that, like, my sister has kind of some sensitivity issues sometimes, and she had a hard time watching this in cinema. It's just loud and bright and full on all of the time, which is exactly what a trigger series is going to be. But if you do have those sensitivities, it might be easier to watch, like, not in a cinema where it's not in a huge screen just blasting at you at every angle. But it is maybe something to keep in mind. I don't know so much about epilepsy warnings, but that also wouldn't surprise me. So just read up on it a little bit, do some research if those are issues that do affect you. But generally, it's a fun time. It's a big, fun, loud, dumb time, and it's really good. I saw it in cinema twice, once in Japanese, once dubbed, and it was great. I really liked it. Again, despite my sister's actual, like, physical uncomfortable experience, she did like it. She thought it was good. It was just a little bit overwhelming, if that makes sense. Yeah, Promare is great. I really like seeing some of this just, like, creativity gone wild to the nth degree, and Trigger has always been great at doing that, so it's really no surprise. Next is another movie I saw in cinema and really liked. Cried like a little bitch. I knew what was gonna happen. My sister didn't, but I knew what was gonna happen, and I still cried like a little bitch. And that is Ride Your Wave. This is the most recent film by Masaki Yuasa. It says of Devilman Crybaby in Japan sinks 2020 fame. Devilman Crybaby, absolutely yes. I don't know if you want to put Japan sinks 2020 on there. This is recent television work, but I'd be more in line to talk about, like, anything else. Ping pong. Maybe ping pong. So this is the story of a young woman who she recently moves into a new neighborhood, and she's all setting up in her new apartment, and she loves to surf. She surfs. She used to live in the area, and she, went away for school, but she's recently returned to her hometown, and she loves to surf. She's out there on the waves every single morning. And so she, unbeknownst to her, she's caught the eye of the local fire department. They kind of notice her, surfing every single day, because she has just recently been doing it. And then later that evening, she kind of, talks to them a little bit. But then later, at her apartment, there's a fire that started, and she can't get out as quickly or in the way that she needs to. So she is rescued by one of the firefighters, and he talks to her. They have a lot in common, and they fall in love, right? So the first half, or the first third of the series, or this movie, is about their relationship, and they're really happy together, and they're really well suited. They both surf. He tells her about how he became a firefighter because when he was a child, he was saved by this stranger, and he just wanted to help other people and, do that for other people, and he was drowning, and then another kid saved him. And they're together for a long time. There's discussion of, them, being together forever and all this other stuff. But unfortunately, and very suddenly, one day this firefighter, this guy, decides to go surf in the morning, as he always does. And it's fine, he's had a good surf, but he notices that somebody has started to struggle in the water, is drowning, and goes back out to help them. And when he does that, unfortunately, although he's able to save that person, he loses his life. So this is actually a story of a film about grief, and how our main character it kind of copes with that. She starts seeing that her boyfriend in everything. She starts seeing him in water. And it's not just like she's crazy or she's emotional and, grieving and needing some sort of comfort. He actually is there in like this tiny little version of himself, which can grow very large, like depending on the amount of water there. And so he exists as a comfort for her in the water. And yeah, it's basically a film about overcoming tragedy and grief and loss, and remembering the people important to you, but also then living life after death, right? And it's just, oh, I cried like a little bitch. The end is a little bit unrealistic, is putting it mildly. Let's just put it that way. But it's overall a really emotionally strong, passionate film. I think most people will cry to some extent. It's just really well done. And Yuasa obviously is a great director. I love majority of what he's put out. He's just so good at what he does. And yeah, Ride Your Wave is not exactly a happy story, but it's not exactly a sad story either. It's a hopeful story, and I think that's really nice. It's a really, again, it focuses on and centers grief and overcoming grief or accepting grief and accepting loss and death without being overtly depressing and without making it something so tragic, so terrible that there's no solution to this, or that there's no way you can continue after loss. Which is an important message, I think, generally, and death, sadly, is a part of human experience. I think everyone will experience death to some degree, and to every degree, if you live long enough. So, ride your wave. Don't let the cover fool you necessarily. There'll be a lot of tears shed. Yeah, it's wonderful. Keeping with the sea theme and keeping with films that I saw in the cinema, I also bought Children of the Sea, which is an adaptation of the manga of the same name. This is a manga by Daisuke Igarashi, and the anime is done by Studio 4 Degrees Celsius or 4 Degrees C. Oh my gosh. This isn't necessarily an easy film to recommend. And it's kind of one of those films that I feel like some people will just be like, you only like that because it's pretentious, or nobody would be able to understand that, or you just like to think that you're smarter than people. My sister, again, I always see these films with my sister, but she's like, I don't know what the hell was going on at the ending of that film. She's like, yeah, I mean, I knew there was black smokers. I like the black smokers. But this is a phenomenal manga. I adore it. I highly recommend it, and the anime film is a great adaptation of it. It's so beautifully animated as well. It's really, Igarashi has a really unique art style, and I think they captured it really well. I think the vastness and the majesty and the mystery of the ocean was also captured really well in this film. So this is the story of a young girl who, her father works at an aquarium, her parents are kind of separated or ostracized, and while she's visiting her father at the aquarium, she meets this boy who's her similar age, and she learns that he kind of just lives at the aquarium with some of the researchers, because he and his brother were discovered in the oceans, somewhere in Southeast Asia. They had been raised by dugongs, and so they are truly children of the sea. And so whilst one brother is quite vibrant and happy and positive and has a really interested in connecting with our main character, the other brother is kind of a little bit more cool-headed. He's not that interested in interacting with people, but he has subjected himself to study, because obviously people are interested, doctors and specialists are interested in how two human children were able to survive in the ocean at all. And so there's the straightforward narrative is Ruka, our main character, her summer with these two brothers, these two mysterious children of the sea. But the larger narrative is about humanity's relationship with the ocean, the idea of the water being the birthplace of all life, not only on Earth, but also this idea of, like, for mammals, we are cradled in fluid in the womb. Like, we are all, there's this whole cycle of how water is paramount to our life. We can't survive without water, but at the same time, too much water is dangerous, and we also can't survive in water. And then the great mystery, the great majesty of the ocean. And then also, furthermore, tying those threads with Ruka and the relationship to her parents and her parents' relationship to each other, and how we mend and break and try again with people, and how connections are never truly severed. It's just, I love it so much, but it does get a little esoteric once it really dives into the craziness of its themes in the last, quarter of it. Igarashi just really goes in on the symbolism, on showing, not telling, and I think for some people that might be a little, it's unconventional, so it's hard to understand, so you may not initially like the series if you're wanting something that is more like a premiere, just meant to be like a fun popcorn flick. And I'm not saying that this is better than that, they both serve different purposes. This is a film that I could see winning, indie film festival things, rather than making it big at the box office, right? But they're both valid and valuable things. And as someone who did love the manga, I was looking forward to this film, and it absolutely didn't disappoint me in that respect. I definitely encourage people to watch it, but it may be a film that you have to watch a couple times to kind of seep into an experience fully, because it is an experience more so than a story necessarily. So yeah, Children of the Sea, I love it, but it is one that's harder to recommend just outright, because it's not something that will appeal to everyone, and it's not one that should appeal to everyone either. So yeah, Children of the Sea. A little less esoteric, a little more dumb franchisey. So this is Fate Stay Night, Heaven's Feel, film 2, Lost Butterfly. Yeah, film 2. So for long-time listeners or watchers, and you really have to kind of dig deep in the archives of my channel, but once upon a time, I did a podcast episode with my sister where we were talking about anime that we had recently seen. Recently watched and we talked about a couple anime films that we'd seen in cinemas, and one of them was this movie. And we did not like this movie. My sister outright hated it. And I was not the biggest fan, to put it mildly. And this is the middle chapter of the trilogy. This is obviously Fate Stay Night, but focused on Sakura, who is this character here, and her route from the visual novel. And her route was something that I think a lot of Fate fans never expected to get adapted, because it's super dark themes, it's super violent, super just upsetting with a lot of things. Sakura went through, or goes through, a lot of abuse over the course of her life, and that is pretty plainly depicted in both the first film and this and the last film. All of them. I have since seen the last film, and I do enjoy that one more than this one. I think one of our issues with this film is that as a character, Sakura personally isn't that interesting to me, and certainly not to my sister. She's not a bad character, but the way that she's presented, and then the way that her story is such a melodramatic unfolding, just seems to not be something that we jive with. And so I think that, and especially because, so if you look at story theory, like if you're writing a story, you need the whole, like when you look at trilogies as well, and you can apply this to all trilogies really, there's like an engaging first film or first third of your story, and then there's where your hero is introduced to the situation, and there's a victory and whatever else, and then in the middle chapter is like the low point for the characters. Things are going terribly, and in order to build up that finale so that we can have a wonderful ending and you've overcome all of this stuff and life is good again. This is the downer middle chapter of a storyline that is already a super downer, to put it mildly. And that it's not that we necessarily hated, well, I mean, I don't know about, I can't put words in my sister's mouth, but it's not that I necessarily hated this film. It's more so that this film represented some of the worst things, in my opinion, of Fate. And especially considering Sakura, again, isn't a character that either of us were super invested in. But I will say that it was effective. When we did see the third film, we did enjoy it a lot more, and it was a good conclusion to the series, or to the storyline. But yeah, so if you don't have those issues, then that's fine. I already own the first film. I'm planning on getting the last film. Obviously, you need the middle bit when you're doing that. So, and I do have a complete Ufotable Fate collection. Fate Zero, Fate Stay Night, Unlimited Blade Works, and then now Heaven's Feel. The only one, of course, that I'm missing is the last film, which hasn't been released yet on disc. So yeah, this is obviously, it's the Fate route that focuses on Sakura as a romantic interest and as the quote-unquote main character. If you're not familiar with Fate Stay Night, it follows a high school boy called Shiro Emiya, who he has a lot of people in his life, but he was taken in, adopted after a terrible fire 10 years prior by his adoptive father. And when one day he kind of stumbles into he has this ability to find what's broken in objects. He can fix anything, and it's a little bit of a magic ability. And he doesn't know where it comes from. He doesn't remember his family, and his foster father has since died. But one day he is just living his life. There's been a lot of like hubbub and weird things going around the town, but he discovers through the act of summoning a mighty hero, a heroic figure from history, he has now become a member of what is known as the Holy Grail War, where a bunch of factions, a bunch of individuals, and their servants, quote unquote, fight each other in order to gain the Holy Grail and make a wish, and they can answer any wish. So Shiro, Emiya, his servant is Saber. I would be wholly shocked if you are in any way, shape, or form an anime or manga fan and you have not come across Saber before. She is a huge pop culture icon and seems to be everywhere. She's had 4 million figures made, and Fate, in all its iterations, has a Saber version there. Ben Saber is the personification. Well, Saber is the role. The actual historical figure is, maybe that's a secret, I don't know. No, it is Arturia. She's meant to be King Arthur, who apparently was a teenage girl in this world. So yeah, and so he has to try and participate in this big fight that he really has no interest in. And yeah, depending on the storyline that you pick in the visual novel, you can romance either Saber, Rin, who's upperclassman, one of his fellow high school students, who has her own servant, which is Archer. Not Archer? Yes. Yeah, Archer. Why did I get him confused with Lancer? Archer is her servant who has a big mystery and has his true identity is a big reveal and all that, and that's what the Unlimited Blade Works storyline adapts. So if you're wanting the Saber like romance option anime version, that would be the original majority of the original Dean Fate Stay Night anime, which a lot of people dislike, but that's typically the main storyline there, for if you want Saber. And then Rin is the Unlimited Blade Works, which is what Ufotable adapted. And then The Heavens Feel, which is this film trilogy, adapts the Sakura route, which is a younger classman, a kohai of Emiya, and who also has ties to this Holy Grail War, and Rin and Emiya and everyone involved. So think caster? I don't know. Writer. Jesus. Who's cast? It's been a little while since I was familiar with the original Fate Stay Night, so apologies. I know Fate fans are probably screaming at me, but I find Fate like a little bit too convoluted. I don't mind following the Ufotable stuff, but all of the spin-offs and that, I don't know, I can't keep up. But yeah, so this is not necessarily like, this is a film. If you've seen the first film, you'll be watching this one, and I would highly encourage you to continue with the third one, because, you know, that's the end of the story, and that's the payoff of the previous two films. But also, visual novel adaptations, they're so talky. Like, there's so much talking and explaining of all of this stuff, all of this magic and this Holy Grail War and whatever, and if you're not into it, your eyes may start to glaze over. I will say, of course, with Ufotable, if nothing else, the action fighting scenes are mind blowing. It's quite amazing, like how beautiful the action is in these films and in all of the Fate stuff from Ufotable. So yeah, your mileage may vary, but if you're a Fate fan, then I'm sure you've already seen it, already own it, or plan to. Another franchise film, another Australian release, and this is okay. This is another. All of these movies I see in cinema. Well, I think this is the last one that I've seen in cinema, actually, to be honest. But this is so I saw this in cinema. This is from a franchise that's very popular. I enjoy it. It's one of the more solid Shonen Jump adaptations. And it's very popular. Like, the manga's popular, the anime's popular, newest season, I don't know when it's coming out, but will definitely be popular. You know, tale as old as time. I wasn't, like, the first film, I definitely, like, it was fine. It was a Shonen Jump franchise film. Something that I never expect to... I personally, I find Jump films kind of... especially original franchise stuff that's never just filler, basically, ranges from between terrible and like pretty okay but not great. There are some standouts, franchise films, of course, but typically, like, the really good ones are written or, you know, have the mangaka influence in the creative process, or they are an adaptation of just one of the manga arcs, like obviously Demon Slayer, Mugen Train. That's what that situation is, compared to like Naruto or Bleach or a lot of these other ones that are just like a side story that doesn't have any impact on the main story and will be forgotten. And that's what both of these films are, like both of the films from this franchise are. But the first one was just like exactly like, okay, it's not the worst thing. It's kind of okay, mediocre, fine. But this one, I actually really liked this. It has a dumb 2 minutes at the ending, which makes it like, oh, why did that have to be necessary? But overall, I really liked it. I thought the stakes were really high. I really liked that it utilized all the characters and gave them all time to shine. And rather than beat around the bush anymore, this is My Hero Academia Heroes Rising. Yeah, I really liked this film. I think Bones did a great job. It looks great. All of the characters, the entirety of 1A, do stuff. Like, they're all involved in this fight. So basically, our main cast, Deku and his friends, are sent to a remote island, doing some volunteering, hero work as part of their summer vacation, and unbeknownst to them, a villain has escaped from a facility or something in Tokyo, and is... I don't really remember why they... Oh, yeah, okay, so this villain has the ability to steal people's quirks, which is quite, you know, that's like in the manga. There's another character has that, and there's ties to that. Like, they acknowledge that this is, oh yes, this is just another pawn of so and so. So he discovers that there is a child on this island. The villain discovers that there's a child on this island who has this quirk to, I don't remember what it is. He has some sort of special quirk. So the villain is like, okay, I'm gonna go to this island, steal this quirk from this kid, and then I'll be, you know, super powerful, and I'll take over the world, or whatever it is he wants to do. This is coincidentally the same island that Deku and all of his friends are helping the locals, with volunteering with various things, and so they are just, you know, they're there coincidentally. Pretty quickly they discover that this villain and his associates are here, and then they have to fight, and this is a very powerful villain, and they also have to figure out why they're here and how to protect these people that in this town that they care about, and obviously that's what heroes are meant to do, etc., etc. And rather than just being a movie about like Deku and Bakugo and Todoroki and maybe like Ochiya and Ochako. Where is Ochiya from? Ochako and maybe Ida. Everyone, literally everyone, has a time to shine in this. They all work together and they have this big plan, and they work, and it's effective. And some things go wrong, but then they cover for it. It's super good, and I was really impressed in how easily they were able to incorporate all of these characters and their quirks into the story. Because obviously with any shonen with a large cast, especially like a classroom setting, some characters get focused on more than others, right? That's some character, like the protagonist and a couple characters have a huge focus, but then side characters may get an arc or like a couple chapters focused on them. And honestly, My Hero Academia is pretty good at giving the side characters some meaningful development, but it is typically, Bakugo and Deku and Todoroki who get the main kind of personal growth over the course of the series. And in that first film, we only had a couple of the characters. Again, Deku, Bakugo, Oshiko. Ida wasn't there. Denki was. Jiro maybe. What's his name? I purged him from my mind. Grape Boy, that everybody hates except for people who are like, you just hate him. No, he's the worst character and I hate him. Grape Boy, you know who I'm talking about. He was in it. I think Kirishima. I'm pretty sure Kirishima was in the original film, the earlier film, the first film. Maybe Mai. I don't really remember, but there wasn't a huge amount of the characters. It was the main characters. But this had everyone, and it was really cool to see them all working together. The animation was brilliant. Bones really did a phenomenal job. Even when the dumb stuff was happening at the very end, it looked amazing. And as I said, there was like 2 minutes of really dumb stuff at the very end, in relation to Deku and Bakugo, more specifically. So if you've seen that film, you may know what I mean. But yeah, so I really liked it, and I think this is one of the better franchise films that ticks all the right boxes, does it well, execution's great, and I like My Hero. It's not it's not a masterpiece or anything, but it's solid. It's a fun shonen. I like the anime quite a lot, and solid shonen. When it's done well, it's done well, and My Hero Academia is always done well. Next, I got all 3 films in this trilogy, in this franchise trilogy. I bought the second and third in sales, and then I bought the first one secondhand. I thought I was getting the standard edition for the first one, but no, they sent me the limited edition, which I'm not complaining about, but I probably won't display it with the limited edition. And that is Kisa Monogatari, part 1, which is Teketsu, part 2, which is Neketsu, and part 3, which is Reiketsu. So this is part of the Monogatari franchise, obviously. So this is the prequel to Bakemonogatari. This is how Koyomi Araragi, the protagonist, kind of discovered the world of oddities and became an oddity himself. He runs into Shinobu, or Kiss Shot Heart Under Blade. I feel like she has more in her name. This vampire. And he saves her. He allows her to. He finds her like attacked and eviscerated in the like underground train line subway thing in the middle of the night, and he allows her to drink his blood, and in doing so he becomes her kindred, her spawn, and so he becomes a vampire, and so it's the process of him fixing his vampirism, but also staying and upholding his promise to this vampire, Kiss Shot. And yeah, I love this. I love this trilogy. I think the films are only like an hour long. This one's 82 minutes, but I do think that they're, yeah, cause the second one's 68. I think the first one's only 63. So the first two are only just over an hour, whereas the last one is an hour 20 minutes. And, you know, it kind of makes sense. This was all one novel. And again, Shaft is, I love Monogatari for all of its faults and, you know, valid criticisms. Always looks good. The performances are wonderful. And, oh my goodness, a movie budget for Monogatari stuff is incredible. I love the novel for this as well. I just find Kiss Shot and Aragi's relationship really interesting. Aragi is maybe sometimes a hard protagonist to like, but I do like him a lot, actually. Monogatari, again, for as much valid criticism as it can get, I love it. I love it. Nisio Isin really, again, he plays with clever dialogue, he plays with a lot of unusual characters and unexpected character traits, but this is the beginning of the story. This is where it all starts, and if nothing else, even if you haven't seen Bakemonogatari and its subsequent sequels, spin-offs, kind of prequels, not quite, and you weren't super into it, I would say give these films a try, because maybe the first one's a lot of talking, not a huge amount of doing, but the conversations are always interesting as well. Like, Nisio Isin has a way with words, and he loves wordplay. I've said this before, but that doesn't make it invalid that you know, he has just long stretches of dialogue. I don't know. It's really I'm just really happy to finally have these films. It took forever for me to finally like jump on these physically, and I've since watched them, and it's so good. It's so good. I love it so much. I hope to get the rest of Monogatari most likely in the UK releases, because I do not want to spend Aniplex prices for it. And yeah, there's a reason Monogatari is still so popular, is still something like the novels still sell super well, and that this is a franchise that has just grown so huge and has stayed like a perennial favorite. It's not like a smash hit breakout part of pop culture sensation now, but it's something that will always, I think, have relevancy in its cult following in the otaku community, quote unquote. Yeah, I love these films. Kiss Shot is hot. And I also just really like vampire stories. I think it's a really well done look at dependent relationships as well, and how people try to help each other, and how sometimes that help can be a little bit not great, like can actually hurt people. It's just, yeah. Kisa Monogatari, you're so good. You're so good, and I can't wait to reread the novel. Finally, we've made it all the way to the end. Oh my goodness. This is another UK release. This is an older release, and one that I had wanted to pick up for quite a while. I don't know if the disc is one that I may have to switch out, because I do have the standard edition release for this, so maybe, I don't know. But this is Perfect Blue, the collector's edition from the UK. Basically, it's the film on 2 discs and digipack and art cards. I am expecting to get Millennium Actress from Anime Limited in the future, their 4K Blu-ray release, because one, that's my favorite con film, but also con's films are all amazing, and I'm just wanting, when the opportunity presents itself, to get these nice fancy editions of con's works, if possible. I still need to get Paranoia Agent. I'm gonna wait to see what the UK does with theirs. Otherwise, I'll just get the standard US release. But yeah, Perfect Blue is a psychological thriller about a young woman who was part of an idol unit who decides to quit her idol group and become a more serious entertainer, actor, actress, musician, etc. But her career's not going super well, and then all of a sudden, people around her in her life start being attacked and killed, violently attacked. And so she starts to worry that it is herself, her stage persona, sort of come alive and started attacking people because of this disconnect between her reality and the reality that she's always presented, and the frustration of her career not going super well. And so she's afraid of herself. She can't trust herself, which is terrifying, right? I love this movie so much. It's so good. This was the first con film that I ever watched, which I think is maybe the case for a lot of people. It certainly has a very glowing reputation, and yes, it is so good. I need to rewatch it now that I have gotten this edition. I mean, it's been a long time since I rewatched the film, to be honest, so it would be a good idea to maybe get started on that. Or I might just wait until I have a little bit more time. But Perfect Blue is immensely wonderful. It has a Blu-ray release in the US and the UK and everywhere else. So now, if you haven't watched it and you do like thrillers, mysteries, kind of high suspense stuff, you owe it to yourself to watch this one. It's super duper good. That is everything that I got for this first month. Oh my goodness. If you've survived this long, congratulations. I don't know how you did it because I barely got there. Whole bunch of stuff. A whole bunch of different genres as well. Films and shows. Long-running shonen to short and sweet shoujo to just run-of-the-mill cool slice of life to wacky comedy hijinks. Really, this month saw me buying all sorts of things. Let me know your thoughts on any of the series that I was talking about today. If you love them, hate them, if you haven't tried them, if you just discovered them. I really do appreciate hearing from everyone. It does mean a lot to me when people respond. But yeah. This has been an absolute slog. So again, everyone who has survived this far gets a commendation from me, honestly. Thank you guys so much for watching. I, as always, really appreciate it. I will link my Twitter in the description below because that's the best way to follow me, find out what's happening in my life, if I post any updates, etc. Otherwise, I will catch you in the next video. Bye till then.